All right, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to episode number 9 of the Primetime Rundown Zoom interview series right here on the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Networks. We do apologize for for a couple of technical difficulties on both of our sides here, but we finally have gotten it figured out. It looks like 6:04 Eastern Time. I'm Joey Jarzynka. I am joined by a fellow classmate of mine just from a few years ago, CBS News's and CBS This Morning's broadcast associate Derrell Bouknight. Derrell, thank you so much for coming on to onto my newest project, the Zoom interview series of the Primetime Rundown. It's a little subtopic almost of my podcast. And
Right.
how you doing?
Doing well. As I guess as well as I can be right now. With everybody dealing with what's going on and trying to stay busy, trying to figure out what to do and when to do it. Just getting
Yeah,
through. Way to
yeah.
put it.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And not only that, but first off, and I said this before, happy birthday to you, because just for
Thank
those
you.
that do not know, April 29th, our man Derrell here turned 23 years young. And
Sure.
and
Yes.
the craziest part about it is that you are one of many to celebrate a birthday under these crazy circumstances. How does it feel to have someone drive by and potentially honk on the horn and to honk happy birthday? Something that you'll never get to see. I mean, who knows? You might never see that again.
Right. I mean, it was a birthday like I've never had before. Um, it was my roommate. He got me a pizza, so we celebrated with pizza. Good pizza actually. Um, it was one where it was quiet, which I don't mind, but it was eerie quiet because there was nobody out on the street and there was nobody really around in the vicinity to talk to or celebrate with. So that day, that Wednesday when my birthday was just something I've never experienced before. But I have seen those videos where people drive by and they honk and they put the gift outside of the window of their car and leave it on the street for somebody to come pick up. So it's been weird. It's been weird, obviously, like you said, for me and then for other people around the country, around the world who have had to deal with this.
So now you are, first off, for those that do not know, you're from the DMV area. For those that do not know, the Mid-Atlantic region, that, as we say up here, we don't really refer to the DC, Maryland, Virginia area as the aforementioned DMV, but the Mid-Atlantic region. But you're from there. Now, where are you right now? Because you said you're a roommate. So are you down by home or are you up here?
No, I'm still up here. I'm here in New York.
Wow.
I'm in Queens. I live in Astoria, right across the bridge. Um, right over the bridge and from Manhattan.
Yeah.
So um, yeah, I'm in Queens. I think it was March 11th. That was my last day being physically at work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I work overnight shifts. So I woke up and I saw an email saying, "Don't come to work." And I haven't been in since March 11th. But yeah, I grew up, like you said, in DC, but I'm still in New York right now.
Wow. So now with you being in Astoria, because I was gonna say, so we're live from Long Island here, but I was gonna say, oh, okay, so you're down in DC, so we have a little bit of distance here between us. But now that, now instead of it being 400 miles, now it's only 40 miles,
Yeah, yeah,
compared to where we are,
yeah.
for, where we are right now. So after March 11th, and I always say this because, in the sports field, that, even though you're in the media industry, you're in the news sector now, but you're all over sports, and
Mhm.
not only with high school sports down in the Mid-Atlantic region, but in addition, you were also obviously the sports editor at St. John's for the Torch. We'll get to that in a little bit. But March 12th, I always say this, is the day, and March 11th, both of the 2 days that were really almost like today's D-Day, if you will,
Mhm.
because those were the 2 days that, it was officially named a pandemic. And March 11th, that I'm sure, I don't know if you saw it maybe on Twitter or Instagram, where it has a whole list of things that happened in a 24-hour span. And it was probably like almost 40 different scenarios that happened that all came true, which is crazy. But the reason why I bring that up is because you said, you said that they told you not to go into work. Now, I'm surprised actually you didn't head home. You're still up here.
Yeah, I didn't know what was going to come out of it. I like I said, I woke up and I got an email, and if I'm remembering it correctly, they evacuated the building.
Right.
To give some perspective, the I work on 57th Street and 10th Avenue in Manhattan, so that entire block belongs to the CBS building. I work on the first floor of that building, and from what I remember, there were people on the first floor and on the fifth floor and a couple other floors in that building who ended up testing positive for coronavirus. So at that moment, I didn't know if it was just going to be a temporary thing, like, don't come in for a few days, we're going to sanitize the place and it'll be back in running by Monday or the following Monday, which I think was actually the plan. And I said, I'll stick it out up here for a while. And then everything just went down from there. So yeah, I'm here. I'm still here.
That's good. Yeah. And like I said, and exactly what you said, you're making the best of it. You can only do what you can, staying up here and everything, and your family being, again, not that far
Right.
south, which is good. So obviously if you really had the desire or the need, the want, or whatever to go home, it's not a, 6-hour plane ride across the country or potentially around the world.
Exactly.
So let's get things started here. So ladies and gentlemen, episode number 9 features Derrell Bouknight, and we have the little, the preview of who Derrell is. And just for those who do not know how I know Derrell is through St. John's when we were students together. And I know Derrell through St. John's athletics, through St. John's basketball. In addition to our mutual friends, Brendan Myers, Anthony Tornatore, Kevin Connolly, Mike Slavitt, that whole crew. That's how you and I met. That's how you and I know each other. And the reason why I bring that up for all of those is because this byproduct that I have successfully made here, or started with the Primetime Rundown and the Zoom interview series, I like to bring on my friends and the people that I have gotten to know along the way and have good standing relationships with throughout the media industry and also the sports industry too. So Derrell, cannot officially thank you enough for being on here, but this is your official thank you and welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So let's get things started. So as we said, you grew up in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. You went to Gonzaga College High School. Now, for those that do not know, graduated in 2015. That high school is located on I Street in downtown DC. Talk about your time. As a student and how it relates to the sports industry, where you were also an intern with the Washington Post. Let's hear a little bit about that, Derrell.
So yeah, I started at Gonzaga in 2011. It's an all-boys Jesuit high school right in the middle of DC, a couple blocks away from the Capitol building. So I started there, and it was honestly probably the best experience of my life. Being there, being at a high school that's academically challenging, and it's also one that instills a lot of the Jesuit values and religious values that I carry with me to this day. I got there in 2015, and when was it? I think it was going into my junior year of at Gonzaga. I saw something from the Youth Journalism Development Program at the Washington Post. That they were taking interns for its little program that fall or that spring, whenever it was. I think it was the fall semester. So I applied and I got in. And the idea is that you're matched with a mentor. You're matched with a writer from the Washington Post. So I was matched with Brandon Parker, who was a sports writer for the Post. He's now he works for the NFL. He works with the communications department in the NFL,
Okay.
and he was a tremendous mentor. And basically, what I did, I went to games. I covered games. I covered basketball, football. In the spring, I covered a little lacrosse, and I would write. I would shadow with Brandon, but and get tips from him and learn little tricks of the trade. And then after shadowing him, I would go out maybe on my own or maybe with some of his guidance and write stories for the Post. I wrote a couple game recaps. I remember Gonzaga versus Paul VI basketball. It was a huge game. I think getting closer to playoff time. I think I wrote, a couple in-depth stories that got away from the nucleus of the game or whatever sport I was covering. I even wrote one, I wasn't very into news then, but I wrote an article about a guy by the name of Kirk Noble Bloodsworth. He was the first man or the first person in U.S. history to be exonerated from death row based off of DNA evidence. So
Wow.
he happened to speak at Gonzaga, and I said, I know I cover sports. That's what my specialty is, but this guy's story is fascinating. Can I write about it? And they let me write about it. So that's how I got my start, and that was my tenure with the Post, and that's how I got to know Brandon Parker and how he became a mentor and somebody I could look up to and go to with questions, and he would always give me advice from there.
So when you began to write that article, or not even that, but you're thinking to yourself, so you could be dealing with either a murderer or you could be dealing with someone that is completely innocent and he could be, heading to the death chair. And you're going to be writing about this. And because he spoke at your school, now were you ever able to like sit down with him one on one?
From there, I think I did call him and speak to him just for like background stuff.
Yeah.
What I forgot to mention is that he was exonerated, I think, in '92
Oh,
ish.
okay.
Um, and his crime actually took place in, well, the crime he was accused of took place in Baltimore, in the woods in Baltimore. I think he was accused in the murder of a little girl. Um, and I think if I'm remembering it correctly, the guy who actually committed the crime was his cellmate. So it was
Oh.
this wild, bizarre story, but he made the rounds around the country and eventually came to Gonzaga and told his story. And I do remember talking to him briefly after his presentation and getting more information about him before I wrote the story, obviously.
That's got to be that honestly, and just to think about it, because where I am obviously, and where there's a lot of other people, they're in the media industry, but some are in sports. I know that's where I am, and I've been blessed to be there. But your journey has taken you from, from news to sports, back to news, and is that the road that you've always wanted to go down? Was news, or was it the sports part?
It was definitely sports, and it's still sports. That's been my first love.
Right.
Ever since I was a kid. My parents could tell you, I there was a video of me at Redskins Park. I was at their
Ah,
training camp, and
wow.
they had a little section where fans could go on, grab a microphone, and there was a camera there, and they would give you a teleprompter and a script to read off of, and you would report the news right there, what was going on that day. And I did it, and everybody's like, "Wow, this is kind of good." And I don't know, 8 or 9 years old at the time. So I think ever since I was 6 or 7, I knew that sports and sports broadcasting and sports media, that was my passion, and that's the road I wanted to assume. And now, you know, along the way, you kind of evolve and you grow and you start to learn a little more about different things and explore different avenues. But I've always sports is that's what has gotten me here to this point.
Right. And now that you bring that up, which honestly is crazy, and it's mind-boggling to me that, someone of this magnitude, and I'm not going to say anything bad about your school, but think about it. There are how many high schools in this entire country? And he chose to go to yours, or whoever it was had him go to yours. And
Right.
that's where you got your break. So again, for all of the viewers that are watching out there, it's time and it's place. And that's exactly where Derrell was. It was the right moment at the right time. He saw the right person, and he was in already the right situation with the Washington Post. And what better way to have a feature story and to call somebody? Not only that, Derrell, you know what? I want to rewind for a quick second. How was it a weird feeling to talk to this guy where you could say to yourself, well, like, were you shaking on the other end? Like, who is this guy? He was accused of something. He was next to him. He was the guy that slept right underneath me or above me, murdered
Right.
some guy,
It was, first of all, I think he even said this. His name is Kirk Noble Bloodsworth, and he was accused of a very serious crime, and so that automatically paints some sort of picture. When I interacted with him, what I did find was that, and I mean, this isn't to say one thing or another, but he was a really genuine guy. He was very very persistent and very adamant in saying, I believed in myself the whole time. I knew in my head I didn't do this. I knew that it wasn't me, and I knew I had to find my way out of the situation I was in. And that's what he told the students that day. He spoke at Gonzaga, that he always had this belief, he always had this faith that he would get out of the situation he was in.
Right.
Like I said, I think he was accused. He was exonerated in the early '90s. I think he was accused and arrested around 85, 86.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's 6, 7 years of his life that he had to keep this faith and this strong belief, and that's really what I saw most of all out of anything, and talking to him, and learning more about his story on a personal level.
Yeah, which is crazy. And for those that do not know, again, we did have a little bit of a blip there. Sorry about that, Derrell. But Kirk Noble Bloodsworth, former Maryland waterman. He was sentenced to death, and he was the first American ever to be sentenced to death and then to be exonerated post-conviction by DNA testing. He was convicted in 1985 of a 1984 rape and first-degree murder of a 9-year-old girl in Rosedale, Maryland. He was released from prison in 93 and a full exoneration in 2004. Just about, say that's about 11 years prior to him speaking. What say you were at, or no, 9
Uh,
years, because 2013, right? He
yeah,
spoke.
yeah, it was around 2013. Yep.
Gotcha. Well, you see, and again, right place at the right time. You get your start in the media industry. So moving forward with a little bit of, a little more positive, because I do know a few people that are watching that actually I see text messages coming through. My girlfriend actually saying, "Oh, this is great. I love all the murder mysteries," but maybe unfortunately that's not the basis of our interview here. So in addition to you being a part of the Washington Post, you were also a sports reporter for both HardwoodInsiders.com and DCSportsFan.com at the time when you were with Gonzaga College High School. Give us a little bit of background on your second and third opportunities in the industry.
I think I owe a lot of where I started with, to DC Sports Fan. So that was something I did actually, I think 3.5 or just about all 4 years at Gonzaga. I remember I was at a basketball game, Gonzaga versus St. John's High School in
Okay.
DC, and I went up to like the main writer and photographer of DC, Brian Kapoor. I was a freshman, I believe, and I asked them, "Do you guys have any opportunities, any writing opportunities? And he said, no, at the time we don't, unfortunately, but he gave me his card. He kept my number. I got his, and I would, every week or so, every other week, I would slide him another note. Got anything? Got anything now? And eventually, I think it was around, let's call it April of 2012, towards the end of my freshman year. He reached out and he said, let's bring you on. I think we have an opportunity. We have something available. Cover this game. It was a boys soccer game. I think it was Gonzaga versus, I don't know, I forgot who they played. But we were getting closer to summer. It was like late April, early May, and I just remember it being so hot. It was hot at that game. I was in a shirt and tie, sweating, and that was my opportunity. I made the most of it, and from there, all 4 years when I was at Gonzaga, I was with DC Sports Fan. I covered basketball, I covered football, I covered lacrosse, I covered soccer, did some track here and there, boys and girls sports. I was going to our sister schools and covering sports there, and it blew off. It took off from there. My senior year, I had my own column, the Bouknight Report, where I was just evaluating recruits, guys going into college, ranking them almost 5-star, 2-star, 1-star, the top 10 recruits that were left for colleges, and that got a lot of notoriety and praise, and that was kind of where things, like I said, got bigger and really took off. So DC Sportsman, that was a ton of fun. I wrote for them maybe at least once a week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week, depending on the games I was able to get to. So that was DC Sportsman. And then Hardwood Insiders, I think, was my junior year going into senior year. So I'm still with Sports Fan at this time, but Hardwood Insiders was all basketball. So it was focusing on star players. It was focusing on kind of getting behind the scenes, pulling that curtain back a little bit. Feature stories, getting into the minds of players and coaches. Still having the occasional recap, obviously, of what happened, but they had the DMV All-Star game that I covered at Catholic University. They had just big tournaments at Gonzaga and DeMatha that I covered all the time, and those are 2 of the premier programs, not only in the DMV area but in the country. I like to think the WCAC, the Washington Catholic Athletic Associate, the Washington Catholic Athletic Conference, I should say, is probably the best in the nation because of the guys who come out of those schools and go to these colleges and make names out of themselves. So that's I was blessed to work with both of those organizations and really establish myself and make a name out there and continue that going forward.
And not only that, all along that little I-95 corridor, they all know who Derrell Bouknight is because you've made your name up here. You've made your name down there. Really, really fun stuff. So now, actually, this is not only so. Okay, so in addition to the question that I'm going to ask anyway, someone actually asked the question on YouTube, and that someone is Samantha Presby. She has asked. She has asked, what made you choose St. John's University for college when there are many excellent schools down in the DC area? Samantha, thank you very much, because that is a perfect segue into the question that I actually had right up next. And now, Derrell, I'm going to ask you this officially. What made you choose St. John's as opposed to a school like Georgetown, which really is right down the block from you?
It wasn't far at all, actually. I think my goal, I always wanted to go to the University of Maryland. That was, they have a really good journalism program, really, really notable names. Perhaps the biggest being Scott Van Pelt, at least right now. Someone I like and look up to. Maryland, I think I do best with kind of individualized personal instruction Maryland is it's a huge school. I love it. I wanted to go there, but come time to apply to colleges, I still applied. I don't remember if I got in or not. I don't think I did. But I once I kind of continued on the path, St. John's and Seton Hall were my final two schools, actually, the ones that I considered. I didn't consider Georgetown, actually, to be honest with you. I loved it. I loved the campus. I loved, I covered a lot of games there, summer league basketball games there, pro-am games. And it just, I don't think they had a journalism major. I think they have a journalism minor.
Yes.
But I don't think they had a journalism major. And that was one thing that kind of steered me away. And I mean, there were other schools in the area I could have considered. I mean, American University was there, and Georgetown, obviously. George Washington was another school,
right.
And I think American and George Washington also do have journalism programs, but a lot of it is geared towards politics and political media, which is something that I didn't want to get into at the time.
Well, you're in it now. Now you're in it.
Now, now I'm in it. So that's why ultimately Seton Hall, actually, I was accepted, but I was deferred to the spring semester. So I chose St. John's, and ironically, I didn't even start at St. John's until the spring of 2016. So
wow,
that's
wild. That's wild stuff, because you have obviously with St. John's, they're known with the torch. They're not really known with WSJU, and the opposite at Seton Hall, they're known for their radio station WSOU, and the Setonian, they're good too. But obviously, the torch is what St. John's is known for, especially at the student level.
Mm-hmm.
So that's crazy. And honestly, I didn't know that you and I came in or went into I guess started classes at the same time, spring of 16. That's wild stuff there. So now that you're at St. John's, and this is now spring of 2016, we're at in chronological order, folks, for those that are watching here on YouTube. There is something else that you were considered as the first ever sports writer. And for those that do not know, it is a byproduct of Hot 97.1 FM for those that live in the New York tri-state area. 97.1 is a hip hop station. BlameMeBro.com. Derrell, BlameMeBro.com. That is BlameMeBro.com. Okay, all right. Give us a little bit of background on that, because BlameMeBro.com is something that I would see out here on the Long Island area.
Uh-huh. I got I know a gentleman by the name of Greg Peppers. Okay. And Greg is in media, and he's involved in media down in the DC area. And I met him, I can't remember where, to be honest, but I came into contact with him, I think just after I graduated high school at Gonzaga. His daughter, Gia Peppers, works up here in New York. She travels a lot because she's also the in-game arena host for the Wizards. So she travels between here and DC often.
Wow.
And he put me in contact with her, and she said, I work here at Blame Ebro at Hot 97, and we can see what internship opportunities are available. So she found something eventually, and I was writing sports articles, maybe about 10 articles a week. Twice a week, I would take a class or in between classes and just knock out some articles. They would give me some topics, and it was just up to me from there to write not how I wanted to write, but kind of come up with the story myself. I covered a few events. I went to Stage 48, which is a nightclub in Manhattan, to cover the J.R. Smith was there. So he had a huge charity event, and I met J.R. Smith and his brother Chris and J.R.'s parents. Victor Cruz was there. Iman Shumpert was there. It was it was cool to be there, just to be around athletes, but away from the game, and that was something I did my freshman year, and it was busy. It wasn't very time consuming. Like I said, maybe 2.5 hours a day, just find 5 or 6 relevant stories that they wanted, covered, and I would write those stories. And that's another way I got my byline and my name out there, just by those little stories and writing those pieces on a weekly basis. So that's what I did for Hot 97 and Blame Me Bro.
So now, and again, for those that are watching, it's very simple. Every opportunity, if you say no to it, you could be missing out with with hours, minutes, and just see with these famous athletes, as you said, Victor Cruz, Iman Shumpert, J.R. Smith. The list goes on. And now, Derrell, also, you can see that when you were covering these guys for BlameMeBro.com and for Hot 97, you can also see that a lot of these guys, they're just human beings like you and I, which is the craziest thing.
Yeah. You know what? And side note, J.R. Smith is like the nicest dude in the world.
Really? I could have never pictured that, honestly.
A lot of people don't, and I think it goes back to when the Cavaliers won the title in 2016. I don't know if you remember this, but post game he gave his interview, and he's crying, he's emotional, in that interview he said, I really appreciate this because there are a lot of misconceptions about me. People, they see me, they see the tattoos, they see, some of my antics, on and off the court, but that's not who I am as a person. That's not who my parents raised me to be. And, when I interviewed him, when I saw him and met him, that's the person that I saw, that really kind and nice and caring and genuine guy who's, just like you and I,
Which is, and again, it's not crazy. It just shows that, you have to give some people a chance, because again, and I'm sure, Derrell, in this field too, you and I have both seen it, not together, but we have seen it, in our path, to try and get to where we want to get to, where we have come across very, not, I mean, I don't want to say disrespectful, but some are disrespectful. Some are really, just very standoffish. They give you the cold shoulder. They don't want to hear anything from you. They give you one-word answers. Extremely difficult, in this field, where it could be a huge win, it could be a regular win, or it could be a major loss, where they literally give you nothing. And if you're getting paid, or even in an internship, to write about said person or said athlete or whatever, and they give you nothing, that makes life 10 times harder. And even if you're writing like a feature story, I can't even think about how I would do that. Now, I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball here, now that obviously we're talking about sports and everything. What is, or who is the hardest athlete, celebrity, whoever it is, news person, let's go with athlete actually, would be the hardest one that you've ever had to work with, or write about, or someone that couldn't really give you enough, or enough information to help you succeed?
Any level, doesn't matter, high school, college,
anything.
The hardest one, I don't know. I think everybody, at least that I've encountered, actually, there were a couple, maybe one or two in high school. I'm not gonna throw their names out there.
I was gonna say no names. Yeah, just one person, two people, that's all. It can be a broad answer.
Yeah, they weren't at Gonzaga. Actually, they weren't. I don't even think they were players in the WCAC. So not Gonzaga, not DeMatha, but just a couple of players who were very, very, very good on the court or on the field. But in terms of talking with the media, it was hard to pull some strings out of them.
Yeah.
They were not rude, but they were very reserved and didn't know. Maybe they just didn't have training on how to talk to the media.
It's fair.
So,
Yeah.
they did go on to play at very good schools, colleges, and programs athletically. But yeah, it's just a couple. Thankfully, I don't know if it's weird because with a lot of the people I interview, I'm either their height or taller than them, and it's like, oh, he's on our level, so we'll talk to him. I'll tell you, who's really fun to interview was Patrick Ewing.
Really?
Pat Coach Ewing was like the funniest guy. He has a sense of humor. He was really fun to interview. I like talking to Chris Mullen too. But Ewing, it's just. I'll tell you a quick story.
Let's hear it.
We were at Big East Media Day. I think it was 2017. I think it was 2017. It was me, Brendan Myers. I think Tornatori was there, and I think Kevin Connolly was there.
Oh,
and
the whole squad.
Whole squad was there, and I think this is during the portion where coaches could branch off and talk to the media. So Ewing takes his seat, and if you remember the year prior, I think this is actually his first Georgetown. Mullins at St. John's, and the year prior in the Big East, same game, Ewing and John Thompson III and Chris Mullen had to be separated.
Yes, that was Big East tournament quarterfinals, round one. Yep, I remember that very, very, very vividly.
It was fun. So I say to Ewing, you're here as coach. Mullen is coaching St. John's. Is the rivalry? Is it coming back? Especially given what happened in the tournament last year. And he looks at, he kind of sits up and he turns to his left and he looks at me. He goes, "Man, the rivalry didn't go anywhere." And like the whole scrum just starts laughing. And he's a he has very subtle humor. He's a really fun and relaxed guy. So he was actually one of my favorite people to talk to, along with Marvin Clark, the second at St. John's. I love Marvin.
So so again, for those that are watching and are looking to get into the field, as Derrell did hesitate earlier when I asked him that question, he couldn't think about it. That is a positive, because if there was one person that came to his mind, well, you know what? That means that it stood out. So really a good positive beginning for you in this industry. So we do have two questions for you, one from Brenda White and one from the aforementioned Brendan Myers, which we will get to. We're actually going to, so Brenda, if you are watching, I will ask the question now, or I will say the question, quote, "I have watched you bloom and blossom. What's next for you?" We'll get to that later on, just because we are going in chronological order of Derrell's life. But Brendan, is asking about the Torch. Quote, "How does he feel about the golden age of Torch sports?" So we'll get to that in just a second. So you can answer that as soon as I ask this question, or I guess, slowly put it into detail. So at first, you were the sports editor of the Torch. That was first. And then afterwards, you were the news editor. So give us a little bit of background about your time with the Torch, and also a predominant figure in New York media was also one of the moderators of the, or I guess the supervisor, if you will, I believe Jim Baumbach, right, from New York's Newsday, and then of course, and then you could of course answer Brendan's question as you tell the your story here.
Yeah. So I started with the Torch. I think I started spring of 2016 when I got to St. John's. I just went in for a meeting and wrote a few things here and there. And from my sophomore year, I was associate sports editor. And then my junior year, I became sports editor with Dylan Hornick. So
yes.
and then at that time, I think Brendan came in and started writing sports articles. So that trio, developed right there. So, covering sports, that was for the Torch was so fun. Big East Media Day and um, baseball and basketball and lacrosse and softball, all these sports, soccer, that I was used to covering already, but now I'm covering them on a D1 collegiate level with all these, a lot of big time athletes and a lot of notable names in terms of players and coaches. So that was it was so much fun, and I have so many great memories, just cuts and going to different arenas and hanging out with different athletes and people there. And I mean, I wrote stories. What I like to do is go beyond, go beneath the surface, get behind the curtain, write feature stories on a couple athletes or coaches, things that people may not know about, and thankfully I was able to do that primarily as the sports editor. And then in senior year, like you said, I was news editor, and it was different. It was a lot different in terms of the style of writing and what I covered, when I covered things. And at that time, Brendan was the sports editor. I went into senior year wanting to be co-sports editors with Brendan. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. I think they didn't have anybody who wanted to be news editor or who applied to be news editor. So they asked if I could do it or if I wanted to do it. And, I did it. And it was tough leaving the sports section at first. But after a couple editions of the newspaper came out, I got the hang of news a little more. And yeah, but and then Nick Bello was there with us. Obviously, he, was taking photos, and he's an amazing photographer, first of all, taking photos and then writing articles too, and doing so much. And Brendan was working with athletic communications and writing for the Torch and with WSJU. So, that was a time when we were all just like in our primes. It was the golden age, like you said.
Yeah, as Brendan Myers did ask. Really, really good stuff. And I remember, and I know, I remember, I think you were in a class. I think it was the five of you guys. I think it was Tornatori, Brendan, Mike Slavitt, with a Professor Rizzo, I believe his name was.
Yeah.
And I was not fortunate enough to get into that class because I didn't really know about it. But all I could hear was great stories and your old group chats together, being students. And, it's just by looking at your face, it sounded like it was a lot of fun.
It was fun. It was fun because it was sports writing, and just watch the Masters. And I think our assignment was to write something on Masters. So that was what we did. And, just being in class with your buddies, with your friends, is, you can't beat it. You can't beat it. So it was fun. That was a ton of fun.
Now you were saying, because we did get a little cut off there. So again, ladies and gentlemen, we do apologize. It looks as if it's on both of our sides, but again, with everything going on, we can only do so much, and beyond blessed for all to be watching whatever you can hear and see. But just to recap that, Derrell, you were saying that in that class, Professor Mike Rizzo did want you to write about the Masters.
Mm-hmm.
And is golf a sport that you've played, watched ever, or was that like the first time that you did that?
I did watch golf. I do watch golf. I had never written about golf. I knew some guys at Gonzaga who were really good golfers. A friend of mine, John, he went on to play golf at Towson.
Okay.
Actually. And it's funny you bring golf is something I wanted to probably Reason
Looks like
two,
it look.
I had shoulder surgery and are we back?
Yeah, it looks like yes. So just so right before you said shoulder surgery, it was very muffled. So if you want to
Oh,
just,
okay.
if you don't mind, if you could just repeat that or rewind just for a quick second. There we go. Now we
Yeah,
see
yeah.
you. We're loud and clear. It looks like. Again, we do apologize for the technical issues here. We do appreciate all the viewers. So please, yeah, give us the story once again, please.
Yeah, so it's golf is something that I wanted to get into actually this year probably, and for two reasons. I don't know if I'll be able to. One, because of everything that's going on in the country. Two, I had shoulder surgery in February,
Okay.
so I'm I'm almost better. I'm still doing physical therapy and getting it stronger.
Good.
But that is something that I want to explore more. Actually, going and playing golf.
That's good. Well, you know what? Now might be the time because I think what you can do is, and once all of this happens, you can hop right over the bridge and go to New Jersey, and you could be playing with 16-minute or 16-minute differentials in terms of tee time. So God forbid if you're terrible, you have about 16 minutes where you could you won't see the guy behind you and yelling at you.
Right, right.
So yeah, that's pretty good. No, golf is an amazing game to get into. I got to tell you though, obviously, and I'm sure you know this as as a lover of golf yourself, not an easy sport, number one.
Right.
And you can, you could be like Happy Gilmore and, and just throw the clubs into the lake or beat up Bob Barker, one or the other. But it's very difficult. And especially now, where, patients could be running thin, with some, not everybody, not saying you, just everyone with, mental states, they want to get out, they want to be good and everything.
Right.
It takes time and it takes a lot of work. And on top of it too, it's a very expensive sport and
It is.
it's not easy, but that I'm really happy to hear that because, actually on our podcast on the Primetime Rundown, my two co-hosts hate golf and told me that they would rather watch paint dry. So I'm really glad that I can finally relate to my love for golf with you, Derrell. That is
There we
fantastic.
go. There we
That's really
go.
that's really amazing. And now with you graduating last year, your class of 2019, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Which is
Yep.
which is again absolutely crazy that was the case where you graduated the year after me, and you're already out. It's we're all getting older.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when you were in school and we were in school together, and I just knew, just your demeanor, the way you went about life. I honestly, I said, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I don't really know Derrell that well, but just by looking at him and just by seeing everything and hearing and reading your stories,
Mm-hmm.
you're a freaking genius. And that is, to put it lightly, seriously.
I appreciate that, Joey.
And the reason why I say that is because you were inducted into the St. John's University President's Society. Now, I'm going to tell you, folks, it was very difficult for me to even get onto the dean's list. But hey, it happened. But for those like you, Derrell, 3.7 GPA and higher, unbelievable. Really, really good stuff. Academically, now I want to ask this, and this is a little bit of another curveball. With everything going on, and you were talking about the in-class instruction earlier when you were looking at choosing schools.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you were still in school and you had to go through what, let's say, for instance, Brendan and Kevin and Anthony Tornatore and also Nick Bello went through or are going through now, where it is mandatory remote learning. Now, because, and you said it, or I'm almost positive because we did have some issues earlier. You like, I would assume, the in-person instruction better.
I do. I think that's how I'm a visual learner. I'm a person who, I take my time to learn things. And I took, I think, one or two hybrid classes where you're in class one day and you take the other day online, or you do your work over the computer. those were okay. I took, most of my classes were in the classroom. And I don't know if I ever told you this, but this is bizarre. I graduated, so I started school a semester late. So
Okay.
technically, I graduated in 3.5 years. My senior year, I had to, in order to graduate in May of last year, I had, I think, 51 credits remaining. So my fall semester took 18 credits. My spring semester had another 33 credits left. So I took 4 classes in the classroom and then 2 classes online. I took 2 online classes. They weren't terrible, just to get them out of the way, and it was a way to get through everything. And then I did a couple of independent study slash CLEP exam courses, and then my internship counted as another 6 credits. So that was 33 credits in a semester. But I think I would do the work that had to be done if I were in their situation. But I like you said, I'm a guy. I have to be in the classroom, especially if it was economics or something, which I had to take my freshman year. I couldn't. I don't know if I would be able to do that online because A, I'm not good with math to begin with, but B, I like that visual in front of you instruction.
Right. So, and I'm honestly, I'm the same way, because you can seriously get distracted when,
Hmm.
when you're sitting here at home, and you could be, I don't know, you could be watching TV over there, or you could be, scrolling the internet, and just, on watching YouTube videos or whatever, while this professor is talking, or whatever the case may be. I could, and for those, obviously, this show is directed for Derrell, but I'm gonna tell you, I mean, for me, I don't think I'd be able to do it, especially because it's whatever. And I love to go, the in person learning, because it almost gives you a purpose to, like, get out of bed almost, just to strive for
Exactly.
just to strive for better. And and in my final semester, or my last semester at St. John's, I took all online classes because we were traveling with men's basketball and everything. And you think to yourself, wow, you're doing this, you're doing whatever. But if you didn't have basketball, or if I didn't have whatever, and I'm just doing online stuff, oof, it can really get boring. It could just get boring. And
Yeah,
how much are you really learning too? When you could
exactly.
really, again, you could be looking up those answers online. Really, but obviously now I don't know how it is. We're both out of school now, well, you're about to be out of school for a year. I'm about to be out of school for a disgustingly 2 years, which is nuts. But moving on here, and back to the sports side.
Hmm.
So you, again, just to recap, you were the sports editor of The Torch. Now you're number 2 of Mike Anderson,
Hmm.
being at the helm of St. John's. You are not writing any more articles for The Torch. You are now at CBS, obviously. But now I want to know what your thoughts are about St. John's moving forward, because last year was your final year, and
Hmm.
it was the year where Chris Mullen um, resigned, if you will, and you didn't get to see or work or write in let's call it a fun year, or a fun non-conference season. What are your thoughts on year number 2?
To begin, I think Mike Anderson did a tremendous job in year one, given that Mustafa Heron was out for a significant amount of time with that ankle injury. There were looming questions from year one, or from Chris Mullen's final year into Anderson's first year. Um, how is he going to work the rotation? What can Marcellus and Greg Williams and Josh Roberts give us? And I was always an advocate. Play Greg Williams more. In Mullen's final year, play Greg, play Greg. Josh showed some sparks in the time he got, and Marcellus is just he's a bully. He has that body, he has the football, and he can defend and rebound. And I think those guys needed a chance, and Mike Anderson gave it to them. And I do think, he still that streak of not having a losing season is alive and well. I think it starts up top. It starts with the culture. I think a lot of St. John's success last year has to be attributed to the standards he brought in and the culture he set. And Mike Cragg has done, in my opinion, a great job coming over from Duke and restructuring things in a certain way and getting St. John's culture and basketball back on track where, many fans are accustomed to seeing it. And I think Anderson has just carried it on from then. He preaches toughness, he preaches camaraderie, he preaches culture, and he's done that for so many years now. People have seen his teams, down south and the 40 minutes of hell on defense. And he said in his introductory press conference, we're going to be entertained, and we're going to entertain you. I can guarantee you that. If you go to the bathroom, you're going to miss something exciting. And I think, they didn't have the deepest team, didn't have the biggest team, they didn't have the most talented team, but they had a team that was very, very hardworking and very persistent. And I think that's only going to carry over into next year with some new guys coming in, with Jonathan McGriff, who actually went to school in the WCAC. Little known fact, I covered him a bit in high school.
Really?
Jonathan McGriff went to Bishop McNamara, and he's a little tough guy, and when he comes back from his injury, and assuming LJ comes back, and you have continued growth from Marcellus and Josh and Greg Williams, I have seen many projecting St. John's to be a top 5 team in the conference, and I think that's realistic. And I think it's going to start with what will hopefully carry over into next year. And you're adding a new team to the conference in UConn, and
yeah,
that's going to be another level of competition, another reason to perform well. And I think Anderson is the guy who can preach to the players and get them motivated and hyped and ready for the season. And hopefully, it can be a tournament season, and hopefully we'll see that resurrection and that culture of St. John's basketball back to where it was for so long.
That would be wild. And not only that too, you said it, the culture. He also preaches family too, and he always has his family or his wife anyway right behind the bench anyway, which really is absolutely amazing and something that you want your head coach to be all about, which is family. So moving forward now, during your time at St. John's, I remember we had put this, I believe, on social media, and I remember I saw it and I was like, wow, I can't believe. But really, now that I get to know you just a little bit more, I can believe it. You continue with your plethora of jobs or experience making skills and everything along those lines, networking, if you will. And let's move over to New York One. And when you were a news intern there, now my question for you, Derrell, is that when you were there, I saw you were out in the field numerous times. And you were also involved in potentially, breaking news stories, whatever it was. Were you ever in the newsroom potentially pitching stories? Did they listen to an intern, or did they just want you to, sit in the corner and watch?
No, you know what? They listen. They listen. And when I was in the newsroom, I was out in the field. There were some days I was there, and I was on the assignment desk actually answering, pitching stories and doing a little bit of editing. So when I first started as an intern, that's when I did start to stories, and I started to look things up in my off time and try to say, how does this relate to New York? How does it relate to New York City? If there was a national story, they talk about localizing national stories or nationalizing local stories, depending on if you're at a local station or a network.
Right.
And I mean, I think that's kind of where I earned my stripes. It was in those conference rooms actually pitching stories. And then they sent me out in the field literally on my own with a camera and actually not with a camera because I was against union rules, but I would use my cell phone to record stuff and do interviews. There was that huge bomb scare in what was it, Midtown, I think, at the post office a few
Oh
years
yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like uh,
Ladies and gentlemen,
I go
hold on 1 second, Derrell. Looks like we have
and I
lost you for a
saw
quick.
them get
Hold
the
on,
bomb.
Derrell, hold on 1 second. We're gonna have you actually repeat that story because it looks like we are a little there we go. We're a little delayed or we're, a little pixelated here. Okay, so Derrell, I heard, and I'm assuming the rest of the viewers heard up to where the bombing, the potential bombing at the post office, and that's where we lost you.
Okay, yeah. So there was that bombing in or that bomb that was planted at the post office in Midtown, and they sent me to the bomb. They said, find the location and find safety first, but then find the location and just record what you can record, help out the reporters who are there, and that goes back to what you were saying about pitching stories and earning stripes internally before you can branch out, before they can actually trust you to do so many things at a time, because they do need your trust and they do need to know, he can handle this, she can do this, he can do that. So that was my experience in New York One. It was very hands on, very
Yeah.
very.
Right. And just because, and you think about it, I think about an intern, not so much of the getting coffee part, for the anchor or for whoever it may be or an executive, but to be pitching stories and to be saying what should be said on television as an intern, as a college student, Darrell, that just shows again the experience that you have within sports, but mainly within news. And with your experience at the Torch and with you finding those stories to report on, to write those feature stories, and to investigate the truth, which is the biggest thing in news and in media generally. That's really remarkable, admirable, etc. All down the line. Because, like I said, I don't know if, and truthfully, and I'm going to ask you this: were you comfortable pitching those stories?
I was, as long as I made sure to cover all my bases.
Right.
I wasn't just going to pitch a story because it sounded attractive. I wanted to make sure it could relate to New York. It could relate to stuff that was going on in the city. Potential stories that had the prospect of blowing up and becoming bigger, maybe starting small and then expanding. They want to hear everything. They want to keep tabs on everything, and I was comfortable, and I think that's some of my advice that I a lot of people. That's if you pitch a story, especially on like your first day there, they'll keep an eye on you. They'll keep a closer eye on you and say, maybe we should look into this, or maybe we'll keep it on our radar, or maybe we can trust this person to do research or actually write a draft of a story, and we can actually report on it sometime soon. So yeah, that's an integral part, in my opinion, of at least getting your start in journalism and media.
And breathing and having the confidence to do it, I could tell you, is really goes a long way. Because again, and we'll get to that in just a few moments, but you start at New York One, and now you're all the way as a broadcast associate at CBS, following three other positions. And we'll get to that in a second, but let's keep it in chronological order. And again, one of our best viewers here, Brenda White, cannot thank you enough for continuing to ask the questions. I'm just gonna say the question. I will not ask Derrell the question just yet because I want to, like I said, Brenda, go in order. So again, thank you very much for giving the questions. It's no secret that your parents had a huge impact on the person you are today. What's the best thing you learned from them? I will repeat that question again later on. So Brenda, thank you very much. Just Derrell, as long as you have that in your head, I'm sure if you want to think of an answer later on, we'll ask that towards the end as we wrap things up. But still a lot to get to. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, Derrell, I don't know if you're okay with time. Just want to
make sure. All good.
Cool. Okay.
All good.
So for those ladies and gentlemen tuning in, the Primetime Rundown Zoom interview series, that's Derrell Bouknight. I'm Joey Jarzynka. Cannot thank you enough for tuning into the Eastern Observer, Blackjack Media Networks. Everything is being simulcasted on YouTube Live. Cannot thank you enough. It is 10 minutes past the top of the hour here on the East Coast. We're both in New York. I was unaware that Derrell was still here, but he is here about 40 miles west of me in Queens. So moving forward, and now actually moving back to your area, Chad Ricardo of NBC Sports Washington, of the Ricardo Report. Chad, if you are watching, cannot thank you enough for retweeting a few of the massive amounts of tweets that I had posted with the tomorrow, today, and right now. Really, really good stuff. Now, you also have a New Normal podcast. It's called New Normal. And that relates to DC high school sports. How did you get involved with Chad Ricardo and with him being at NBC Sports Washington? How big is that for you to get your foot into the sports door, potentially back home?
Yeah, Chad, I think he came to me. He'll tell you that I DM'd him first, but he DM'd me first. I think it was November of 2015. So I'm not at St. John's yet. But he saw my work at DC Sports Fan and some of the articles I had written and things I had done at Gonzaga. And he said, can you, it's football season, are you willing to join my podcast, which was then on Fox Sports 1340 AM. Are you willing to join my podcast and maybe talk about Gonzaga for an episode? So the following week or the week after I did it, I joined the podcast and, gave insight into the games and players and whatever the topics were. And really from there, it became a weekly thing. And he expanded and the Ricardo Report radio show that was on Fox Sports became the Ricardo Report, his personal brand. And through, it's been nearly 5 years we've known each other, which is crazy, but we've covered sports, and my title really is the WCAC Insider, which is covering WCAC sports, and giving perspective on my thoughts and, analysis on players and coaches and games in the area, previewing games, giving rundowns. And he's been a tremendous mentor to me. He, has really helped prepare or propel my career in broadcasting on the broadcasting side of things. And it's come to this now, like you said, the New Normal podcast, which is something we started, or he had the idea to start about a month ago. And we've been able to interview Clark Ray, who is the athletic director of DCSAA Sports. So we've interviewed him, Adam Friedman of Rivals.com, and the big recruiting scout and analyst who goes around the Mid-Atlantic area and recruits and scouts players, football players going into college. We've had him as a guest. Ruquan Brown, who has a remarkable story, is going to Harvard. He earned a scholarship to Harvard, played football, and lost his stepfather and a teammate to gun violence,
Oof.
and he's now an advocate to get guns off the street and raise awareness about gun violence, really around the country, but especially in DC. And we had the honor of interviewing him a couple of weeks ago. So Chad is one of my best friends, and I'll always go to him for advice and pick his brain a little bit. And, he'll do the same with me. And as you said, he's with NBC Sports Washington now, and doing a lot of digital stuff. And his goal is his ambition and his love, his passion is high school sports and high school athletes, and that's who he loves to highlight and what he always wanted to get into. So to see him have with this opportunity and to be able to explore so many different avenues, I couldn't be happier for him.
Really, really good stuff. And not only that, too, the New Normal podcast. Tell us where we could find that, because I know I definitely want to hear and see more of your guests and you.
Yeah, yeah. We record usually every week, every other week, and once it's edited and spliced and condensed a little bit, we'll throw clips on Twitter. So on Chad's Twitter at Real Chad Ricardo, my Twitter at DJ Bouknight, at DCSAA Sports, their Twitter, and it's also on. We'll throw stuff on Facebook and Instagram as well. But the first installment is on DCSAAsports.org. You can find the entire episode on that website.
Good. So, ladies and gentlemen, for those that are wondering about the new normal, you just heard it straight from the man himself. Definitely take a peek at the new normal, because I know I'll be tuning in at some point for sure during this pandemic, and most likely later on as well. So you spoke about the most recent guest in Adam Friedman, who is with Rivals.com, and he is the the guru to find, or the scout that really goes out and finds a lot of these high school players. And on the show, you guys brought up about how do you evaluate players without actually seeing them. And, it's funny, Derrell, because I never really thought about that, because, you figure now is the time where, you have scouts out there and they're going to look for these baseball players or whatever to represent their respective colleges in Division I, Division II, wherever it is. And right now there is a dead period. Obviously, you can't really, the only thing you could do is talk to them. But now, without seeing them, what is it where, especially in high school, how does he do it?
It was surprising. He said that things have changed, but not a whole lot of things have changed for him in terms of how he goes about recruiting and evaluating players. He does a lot of his work online and
Wow.
through video, videos he may see on social media or on Twitter, or, just videos that are sent to him. And from there, I brought up the eye test. It's one thing to see a player on video, but it's another thing to see them in person, their footwork, their speed, their accuracy, their vision in person. So that's one thing I was curious about. And, he said he's adjusting, but it's been pretty straightforward, actually. And from here, it's about reevaluating, re-ranking, or, does this person deserve a higher ranking? Does this person deserve to be a 4-star? Do they deserve a higher rating? So, will their numbers improve from there? So, it was kind of amazing to hear that he's comfortable. Not, the only thing he really can't do is go out and see a player in person, but things are business as usual for him.
That is really amazing, because, you think about it and you say to yourself, I know for me, I'm a part of the New York Professional Scouts Association for baseball. And, and if I said it to, to one of these professional scouts, one guy I know for the Philadelphia Phillies, Danny Palumbo, if I were to ask him and say, hey, listen, you're going to go to a college, you know, and now all of a sudden there is no college baseball, you know, or even high school. There's nothing. How do you view him? Well, you know, you have some of these older guys who don't really want to look at the computer because that's simply not that's not their bread and butter.
Yeah.
And that's not in their DNA, you know, but also because if I'm not mistaken, how old is Adam Friedman, give or take?
Adam is in his like mid to late 30s.
So, right. So exactly. So, you know, and there are some people again out there that, you know, that are scouts and are professional scouts,
Right.
you know, on the high school level and all the way down. You know, for instance, like Adam here, that Derrell was grateful enough to have on his show for rivals.com. And you have these guys that, you know, that can adapt to, you know, to technology. Some can't, some don't. And that is the biggest difficulty right now during this pandemic. So, now we keep moving forward. And Brenda, we have not forgotten about you or your questions. If you are watching, thank you so much for sticking around with us, all of our viewers again. But it's the moment we've all been waiting for. And it's the time where we figure out how Derrell Bouknight has gotten to CBS. And you started off as a news intern. Okay. Then after you were elevated to a news associate. Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
And then hold on a second, folks. Drum roll, please, for those that are watching. Da-da-da-da-da. You were then promoted to a broadcasting associate for CBS This Morning. So I'm sure you have plenty of stories, but first, let's hear how you got to CBS and then also how you elevated from here all the way through my roof up there.
Spring semester, I'm sorry, of senior year. So spring of 2019 is when I started. January 14th, actually. That was my first day as an intern, and I was, like you said, an intern for CBS This Morning. So I was there 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I was in the booking unit. Booking consists of finding guests for the show, finding relevant stories to keep on your radar, to keep an eye on moving forward. It's you know, going out on some shoots, and you know, if you book a character for a show, you know, it's your character, you would want to be there for the shoot to make sure it goes well. So that's really what the booking unit consists of, and I had no idea what it was before I got there. And you know, after a while, I got a hang of everything. I got used to everything. And on my first day, I pitched the story. I forgot which story it was, but everybody, I was sitting, I think, on the left side of the conference room, and I pitched the story, and everybody, they turned around. They're like, "Oh, that was a good story." And so from there, I just think I worked hard. I worked incredibly hard, and I was able to, again, earn my stripes, go out on shoots, go out in the field, and just learn from people. Just pick people's brains, from reporters and anchors to producers and cameramen and editors down in hard news. And you know, my internship was from January through May, right before graduation. And then from there, that's when they offered me a full-time position, I think in April, around mid-April, and I went into the News Associates program. The News Associates program is it's a 15-month program, actually, where you work freelance, and you rotate in 3 different departments for 5 months each. So my first rotation was to CBS Sunday Morning. Now,
Okay.
I was only at Sunday Morning until I was there for 4 months, from May until September. So early September, I got an email from one of the people I knew at CBS who worked with me, one of the internship coordinators, and she said, "Are you interested in this position?" And I learned more about it, and I talked to Jonathan Blakely, who was one of the senior producers I got to know well. He's now at 60 Minutes.
Okay.
And he said, we have this position for you if you want it. It'll help with your writing. It'll help with your production skills. It'll help with broadcasting because you have to write. You have to know how to write in order to broadcast. It'll help with so many different areas, and you'll be really on the front lines. You'll be there working and producing stories overnight. So I was elevated to the position I'm in now as a broadcast associate for CBS This Morning, where like I said, I still pitch stories, but I'm basically almost like an overnight producer. I take handoffs from dayside producers and see it through with the editor overnight and make sure it gets on air, and we go from there. So I've been in this position since September 30th. September 30th, I think.
That is really, really unbelievable, because some people don't ever see the inside of a newsroom, and you've made your way from an intern all the way up to into the broadcast associate, or into the associate's program, which is humongous. Now, when you started there, did you start right? You started right around the time when Gayle King came aboard.
Gayle had been there for a few years, but
okay,
Gayle,
right, yeah, because Nora O'Donnell was just moved over, right?
Correct. So that's kind of when they restructured the CBS This Morning. So Gayle stayed, and then they brought Anthony Mason from CBS This Morning Saturday.
Yes.
And then Tony DeCopel had been a correspondent for several years, and that became the new 3-person morning team.
Right.
So you're right. Yeah, Gayle had been there, but right around the time I started is right around the time they restructured the show. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So now, any fun stories in addition to the time when everyone turned around and noticed who Derrell Bouknight really was?
When I was at Sunday Morning as a news associate, I got to work with James Brown, who went to DeMatha, actually.
Really?
Went to DeMatha and tried out for the Atlanta Hawks.
Wow.
Yeah, I got to work with James Brown on a story about Russell Wilson and his journey as a quarterback, and being the 5'10" quarterback that nobody wanted into probably a top 5 quarterback in the NFL today. So got to work with JB on that, which was one of my favorite stories. Went out on a couple other shoots. I'm trying to think. One story actually earlier this year, or one moment, I should say. It's unfortunate, but it was kind of, another moment that I always keep in the back of my mind. When Kobe Bryant died, it was, January 26th, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And I was on my way back from DC to New York, and I got the news that he died. And, it's like 3:00, something like that. And I went home, got a couple hours of sleep, and had to be up at 8 to get to work by 9. And they were going to have Caron Butler on the show.
Oh, yeah.
Caron is, one of Kobe's good friends, and one of the only friends he made when he was in the NBA.
Yep.
So Caron that night was in Atlanta covering the Wizards Hawks game, and flew back to Racine, Wisconsin for this interview. So I get to work, and one of my colleagues said, we're interviewing Caron Butler tonight. Can you help with some of the research, because you're the sports guy, you love sports? So yeah, of course, sure. And she goes, can you do the interview? And I said, what do you need me to do? And they had a photographer there in Wisconsin already. So the interview was at Caron's mother's house. So he went to Caron's mom's house, set up the camera, set up all the video equipment, and he called me, and I had a television screen next to me so I could see Caron as I was interviewing him. And I was on my phone asking Caron the questions, because the the multimedia journalist who was there didn't know much about sports or Karan Butler either. So that was certainly a memory that sticks out. Yeah, and I've been able to produce a couple other stories here and there that really, are heartwarming. And, I do take on some of the breaking news stories if they come in overnight, but, there are like the Russell Wilson story when I was a news associate, or, having a chance to interact with Karan Butler. That was fun. So yeah, there's always, something that I enjoy.
Family atmosphere, it seems like, where you are, which is really, again, unbelievable. You think about this industry in whole, and it is extremely cutthroat, whatever it is. You could be a broadcast associate, you could be a news intern, or you could be a news associate, or you could even be an anchor. And it's simple. Everyone is trying to get after someone else's job. But again, when you get in there, and I haven't gotten in there yet, but where Derrell is right now, you have a full-time gig and you're in a family atmosphere, really, really good, positive environment, I would hope and assume.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
yeah, which is fantastic. Really, really good stuff there. At 57th Street and 10th Avenue at the CBS headquarters. Now, my question for you, actually, my personal question for you, Derrell, is that the difference between New York One pitching stories and CBS This Morning pitching stories, with you being at the national level now, how difficult is that to get the motivation? And you were saying earlier, the confidence. And I know you have a lot of it, like I said earlier to all of our viewers, the demeanor that I saw that you had, just the way you went about life, the way you went about your job, your work, schooling, everything. Now we've taken it to another level. We took it from college to New York One. Now you're in the big leagues. And how does that say? Did you get jitters the first time you said it?
Hey, pitch the story.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I think it kind of goes back to what I was saying before, that I wanted to pitch a story that would be relevant, and
Right.
something, not just, this person got arrested. Okay. And what else is there to it? Oh,
Yeah.
it was just like robbery. There has to be some substance or depth to it.
Yeah.
I think you were asking about the difference between like local and national pitching.
Yeah, you could say that, or not only that, but also the environment within the newsroom, because you're dealing with people that are on the national stage as opposed to the local stage. You're like I said, you're dealing with, and you're also going out. You were saying earlier, there are sometimes that you're going out to to said location, and this is going to be broadcast all over the United States. It's and New York One is not on every single cable provider, and it's also it's mainly on a loop as well, with the news and whatever, and it's also very repetitive, and it's repeated every hour, whatever. But this is through every single home in the United States, and even also it's streamed around the world, Derrell. That's why I bring up the question to you, is that when you pitch something like this, your story I could be watching your story in a second. That's why I ask you, how, what was the difference? What was the feeling like the first time? And even today, when you go back to work, how hard would it be? Especially because, you've also been out for, about a month and a half.
Yeah, for a long time. With New York One, well, to begin, you want to create or produce or broadcast the best story. You want to put your best foot forward anytime you create content. New York One, a lot of it will be, or any local station will be something you've probably heard of before, with different characters and different names. There will be another shooting in the Bronx, or there'll be somebody taken to the hospital for a weird medical condition. that's going to happen pretty much every day, unfortunately. And you'll hear about that on local news. With national news, you do have to think of stories and how they'll impact people on a broader and more general sense. Um, I'm trying to think of an example. For some reason, I can't off the top of my head right now. But like you said, millions and millions of people could potentially see this, and it'll be online. It'll be on social media. It'll be here on YouTube, and you wanna produce a story that you take your time with, that you believe in, and that you have confidence in. You don't want to put a bad product out there, something that if you didn't work hard to do it, then it'll show in your work probably. In all honesty, and I think realizing that this is a national network, and then this is, like you said, the big leagues and the big stage. You have to have confidence, but you also have to know that there are people there who can help you, and there are people who have been in this industry for 30 or 40 years, and they have so much experience in every single thing, and how one word can change the tone of the story, how one sentence can really draw the emotion out of a character or a viewer, and people will see that locally, but even more people will see that nationally, because it may affect more people on that national scale or that international scale.
Yeah. So right, exactly. Yeah, no, like I said, that's it takes a lot for people to build up that confidence where you can say to your to the upper echelon of the network, or even of the producers of said show, the ones that are calling the shots. And and I by no means, Darrell, am I going to be I guess I would say saying that your position is low, but in the grand scheme of things, you still have a long ways to go to get to where, to get to where you want to go. And especially in this industry, they, and I hate to use this, I would say um, I guess the comparison, but really, if you think about it, it is true. And, when you're all the way down here on the floor almost, and you have all the way up there, well, that's the thing. Why am I going to listen to the guy here when this guy all the way up there has 40 years of experience? And that's the biggest thing, and that's the biggest thing that I'm trying to trying to ask you here. And just the confidence that you bring out, and that that you breathe, it's really admirable. Because I could tell you, again, and I keep saying this, not a lot of people can do what you do at your age and at your position, how you are beginning to climb the ranks, and you just turned 23 less than a week ago. Really, really amazing stuff, Darrell. Um, so
Thank
to
you. Thank you.
so of course, yeah. So to continue, and just to we're slowly gonna wrap things up in just a few minutes, but I do want to ask this question. And Brenda White, if you are watching, I cannot thank you enough for sticking around, because your questions will now be asked. So, Brenda White, you asked a question earlier. I have quote, I have watched you bloom and blossom. What's next for you, Darrell? End quote.
Well, Brenda, that's my aunt. That's
Ah,
that's my mom's
okay.
sister. So she's I knew, she told me last night she was going to tune in.
Well, thank you very
Um,
much, Aunt Brenda.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I don't. I really play things by ear. I let things come to me, and evaluate things as I go. I'm happy where I am right now. I would love to get back into sports at some point, or in the ballpark, to throw a sports term out there, in the ballpark of sports.
Right.
I actually at CBS right now, I catch myself pitching sports stories. I threw one in there last night about Larry Fitzgerald giving back to hospital workers, and that relates to everything going on now. But you have a sports star like Larry Fitzgerald, you can't get around that. But in terms of what's next, only God knows, really. And I'm staying positive. I'm working hard. I'm doing what I can to get to where I do want to be. and we'll see where he takes me. But like I said, I'm happy. I'm blessed to be in the position I'm in, especially this early at this age at a place, at a network like CBS, one that's established and prominent not only nationally but internationally as well. And we'll see what opportunities come up and what I decide to do and where it takes me.
Aunt Brenda, he just turned 23 as well. Not many people at 23 can say they are at where Derrell is. So your nephew has big things ahead of him, that's for sure. The next question from your Aunt Brenda as well, quote, "It's no secret that your parents had a huge impact on the person you are today. What's the best thing you learned from them?" End quote. Well, I'm going to just say this one little thing, Aunt Brenda. I think you do know who his parents are, obviously, one of which is being sister, right? That's what you were saying, right? It's your mom's sister, right?
It's my mom's sister, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you know one of the parents very, very well, Aunt Brenda. So let's answer that question from your aunt.
I think I get different things from both of them. Um, with my mom, she's always been a great writer. Even my grandmother, my mom, and my Aunt Brenda's mother was a great writer. She poetry, which I do as well.
Yes,
She
you do.
was,
Yes, you
that
do. Yeah.
aspect of communication. Yeah, it's kind of passed down. So I think my mom always taught me to be loving, to be caring, to be kind, to be ambitious. As I was saying earlier, I don't know if you heard me, but she sent me a birthday card. She put it in the mail 3 weeks ago, and it just got here today. And what I just said was exactly, I'm emulating what she wrote in that card.
Yeah.
So that be loving, be caring, have respect for everybody. And then my dad is the same way. He's from the South. Most of my family's from the South. He grew up in South Carolina, so that Southern, those Southern manners and those, that respect factor is always there. Treat people the way you want to be treated.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Respect people. Always have his demeanor. I think it's just like mine. I get a lot of the way I act from him and from my mom too. But my mom is the one who wanted me to go to Gonzaga, and my dad, was really involved in the school. My mom too, and the values that I learned at Gonzaga, I was fortunate enough to have inherited from those two. So, that it's where I'm from and who I grew up around, who I was friends with, and the people I hung around. They're all some sort of representation of me, and I always give all the credit to them.
We need more people in this world like you, Derrell. Seriously, that's for sure. Just to appreciate life, treat others the way they want to be treated, loving, caring, respectful, everything. Really, amazing things. Really, really great human that I've been blessed to come in contact with, to know. Really, really blessed that we've crossed paths during our time at St. John's. Now I want to find out a little bit more about Derrell Bouknight, and these are the final three questions that I have for you. Okay. And now we found out who you are on the academic side. We've also found out who you are in your pursuit of your love for sports. Now, I want to hear about the recreational side of Derrell. And that being said, because you cover high school sports in the DMV area, in the Mid-Atlantic region, for those that are watching up here and don't know that term, in DC, Baltimore, Virginia, that area, are you a fan of any professional sports over there? Are you a Wizards fan? Are you a Redskins fan? Nationals, Caps?
All four.
Okay. Well, that removed my question. I was gonna say even Orioles or Ravens, but clearly not.
You know, for a while, it was before the Nationals got to DC, which was I was 8 years old when they came to DC. I would root for the Orioles because they were the most local team. But you know, I am a Nationals fan. You can see that.
Excellent.
Got the hat. Um, I'm big Nationals, big Redskins, and Wizards fan, Capitals as well, and I've always followed those teams ever since since I was a kid. Ravens, no. It's to be quite honest, many people don't even consider Baltimore to be in the DMV. They consider Baltimore to be like its own thing, like they're over there.
Really?
Yeah, Baltimore and Southern Virginia, they, you know, some people from where I'm from disown Baltimore and Southern Virginia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's
the Ravens.
wild.
I have a lot of friends who are Ravens fans, but I never grew up watching the Ravens.
I
I've
gotcha.
diehard Redskins, Wizards, National, and Capitals fan.
I love it. That's fantastic. Now while you were writing with St. John's, obviously, there are times when, you write for a specific team, you report for a specific team, and you want to see said team win. Do you have a favorite college team or school?
I didn't grow up, like a lot of people my age grow up being a Duke fan
Yeah.
or UNC fan, even though I have a lot of relatives in that area, especially, with my dad being from down there and,
Right.
people who, may have gone to Duke or South Carolina or Clemson. I have folks at Clemson. But I did grow up watching both Georgetown and Maryland.
Okay.
I used to root, from the Gary Williams era to the Mark Turgeon era,
Yeah.
and then John Thompson III all the way right now to Patrick Ewing. So I did root for both of those teams, and I still it was weird, being at St. John's and then like, oh, St. John's and Georgetown. Who do I, what do I want? Who do I want to win? I did root for Maryland the whole time I was at St. John's, to be honest.
Okay.
But whenever St. John's and Georgetown played, I just hoped for a good game. I just hoped for a good game. That was
that is the sports writers or sports reporters' best answer. You root for a great game. That is the perfect answer, and I'm glad the perfect thing to say on air. So now while you are your Aunt Brenda, thank you, and Redskin Baby is what she wrote on YouTube. So she knows her nephew very, very well. Now while you are still here and you have your roommate, now that actually negates the question I was going to ask you about, with you being with the family, because you're not. Have there been any movies, any books, any well, now obviously we know you love poetry, or have there been any and not only you love it, but it also runs through your veins, literally. Has there been any projects, anything else that you have caught up on that may have gotten away from you, as your world turned?
Yeah. Before this all started, my girlfriend and I, we were watching This Is Us.
Okay.
That I love that show. I didn't know what to expect going into it, but it's good, and that was our show. So I don't know if we can. Yeah, I mean we can't. It would be different if I watched an episode and she watched an episode, and then we would come together and like have a meeting about it. But
Yeah.
but when this is all over, we'll get back to it because that was something we love. We finished not long ago The West Wing.
Okay,
West Wing.
yeah.
Right now, I am doing a little reading. She actually got me this book right here, St. Francis de Sales, Introduction to the Devout Life. So I'm going to start reading that soon. I did start Homeland recently.
Yes. Claire Danes, great show. Yes.
Yeah, and I have the Showtime.
Hold on one second, Derrell. Hold on one second, Derrell. We lost you. So all we got to, I do apologize again. We got to, and I know you're probably like want to stab the screen. But we got to, all we heard was you have the Showtime blank.
Yeah. Thankfully through CBS, I have the Showtime subscription. So,
excellent. Good.
Yeah. So I started Homeland, and Sunday nights, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. ESPN, The Last Dance.
There you go.
I gotta watch it, and it's been great thus far. It's been really, really good. I've enjoyed every episode, every moment.
Oh yeah. Absolutely amazing. And not only that too, because you're a diehard sports fan, and this is the last question that I have, I promise you. With no sports going on, and with the talk of Korean baseball being aired, I think it's like tomorrow or next Tuesday. I don't know if it's I think maybe in a few hours actually. But whatever it is, with no sports going on whatsoever, how have you been doing with that, with you being an avid sports guy?
It has been tough. I have been able to do reruns of old games. My dad was telling me yesterday he was watching Game 6 of Miami and Dallas in 2011.
Yeah.
They've been showing Lakers Pistons from 04-05, and here and there I do catch a rerun of something that may be on television, but it's been hard because we would have been in the heat of the NBA playoffs, and baseball season obviously would have been here, and I actually wanted to go to, I think, opening weekend. The Nationals were coming up here to play the Mets, and I planned to get some tickets for my girlfriend and I, but that couldn't happen.
Yep.
So it's been a little tough, and the NHL playoffs would have been going on by now, and it's mini camp and OTAs in the NFL are probably non-existent and would have been around this time. But I'm thankful that ESPN did move the Last Dance up to when it started a couple of weekends ago.
Oh yeah.
Because
looks like we might have lost Derrell once again. Hold on one second, Derrell. If you are talking, hold on one second, Derrell. We lost you. We lost you, Derrell. Hold on a second, buddy. We lost you again. My goodness, this is rough. Hold on. We lost. Hold on, Derrell. Hold on. Timeout, Derrell. Timeout, Derrell. Timeout on the play. Hold on one second. We're waiting for your screen to reboot. Give it 1 second. Hold on a second, Derrell. It looks like, there we go. We finally have you back. It looks like we may have lost Derrell. I don't know what happened with him there. Let's see. Maybe we can get him back. And let's see, for those that are watching, we cannot thank you enough for being with us. There he is, the man of the hour, or the man. He is back. Okay, so you were saying about the last thing we got was ESPN moving The Last Dance back almost a month. That's where we were at. Yes. Yep. Hold on 1 second. We can't hear Derrell. Let's unmute you. There we go. Derrell, you have to. There you go. Okay.
That was my fault.
Now you're good. You're good.
I'm thankful that ESPN was able to do that, and I was reading yesterday. They're still editing and producing and putting together all the, like, episode 8 may not even be completed yet. So but I think we did need something to hold us over, especially with it's been a rough year in sports with Kobe and Don Shula passed away this morning.
Yeah.
Something to get us through. Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough. You have legends that are passing left and right. You said it. You said, and just for those that didn't hear, Kobe Bryant, Don Shula. You also have, for those that are out there that know, country star Kenny Rogers died of natural causes at age 81. And you have a lot of guys, and one of which being in the field that we're in. New York Post Anthony Causey also passed away tragically due to he succumbed to the COVID-19 virus. It's a very sad year. It's brutal for a lot of those. It's just it's a bad start to the to the new decade, Derrell. But I'm sure that we'll all get through it. But for you though, you are in a fantastic spot. It is going it's going okay for you. I can sense that, even though you just turned 23 years old. You're at CBS still. You're still you're climbing your way up the ladder, and that's the biggest thing. And you said it earlier, and for those that did not listen, things happen for a reason. Now, one last thing, because we do have one person named Kevin White who asked a question for you, Derrell. And the question is, what advice would you give to an 8 and 10-year-old boys to 8 and 10-year boys academically?
That is my uncle. That is my mom and Aunt Brenda's youngest brother.
Wow! All right.
I assume those
Uncle Kevin,
8 and 10-year-old
excellent.
boys, and I assume they're my cousins and his two. Just I'm trying to think of what grade that is academically. 8, 10. It's not even fifth grade. I think it's like second, third.
I think it's third, fourth, fifth, sixth, in that range, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say like second and fourth. But at that age, listen to your teachers. Do all your work. Ask questions. If you don't know something, ask questions. It never hurts to ask a question and get an answer. But always be persistent, be ready to be called on. And then I think more important than academically, just, be nice to everybody and show respect and be open and willing to accept new ideas and suggestions and opinions. And, people notice that, especially from an early age, and they'll appreciate it, I think, more the younger you are. That's at least my experience, and that's what I've seen with others. So, it's never too early to show signs of maturity and growth and experience. And I think that's how you gain respect and gain experience, and no matter what field you're in.
Well, just shy of an amazing 2-hour interview here, Derrell Bouknight, ladies and gentlemen. Derrell, cannot thank you enough for coming on to the Primetime Rundown Zoom interview series, byproduct of my podcast, the Primetime Rundown, right here on the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Networks. It was really a fun show tonight, and amid all of the obviously the pandemic going on, we had some computer issues, but you know what? It happens. And, really, really glad that you're safe, you're healthy. And it was great that you were able to join me here this evening.
Oh, likewise, Joey. It was a ton of fun. And again, great work with this. And I appreciate you for having me on. I'll be watching and listening. So keep it up. Thanks, Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, man. And you definitely have to make your rounds, when new normal is, when you're free one Friday night, and, you definitely got to come on the Primetime Rundown one of these days. But in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, episode number 25 of the aforementioned Primetime Rundown We'll be kicking off on Friday night from 6 to 8 p.m. Tyler Riddell and Nick Partain will be joining me for all-around sports talk. We'll be talking about the KBO and the Korean Sports League taking over ESPN. And right after Scott Van Pelt's Sports Center at night, we'll see if that was a good idea. Also with Don Shula's passing, as me and Derrell were just speaking about earlier. This week, also, episode number 10 of the Primetime Rundown Zoom interview series with Malloy College Sports Information Director Patrick McCormick. That will be Thursday night, May 7th, and that interview will begin at 6 p.m. right here on Eastern Observer, the Blackjack Media Networks, and will be simulcasted right here on YouTube. Also, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow, right here on the Eastern Observer, Tyler Riddell and Al Carl with ProWrestlingPick'em.com will be debuting a brand new show called Essential Wrestling Podcast. Tune in tomorrow right here on the Eastern Observer at 6 p.m. Do not miss it. We have a fun set of a fun set of programming that didn't make sense at all, but after 2 hours, it happens. So again, ladies and gentlemen, that's Derrell Bouknight. I'm Joey Jarzynka. We cannot thank you enough for tuning in. For all of us here at the Eastern Observer, the Blackjack Media Networks, and the Primetime Rundown Zoom interview series, I'm Joey Jarzynka. We'll see you next time.